Ken James and Jason McKittrick. Brought to you by Cryptocurium.
Unhappy is he to whom the memories of childhood bring only fear and sadness. Wretched is he who looks back upon lone hours in vast and dismal chambers with brown hangings and maddening rows of antique books, or upon awed watches in twilight groves of grotesque, gigantic, and vine-encumbered trees that silently wave twisted branches far aloft. Such a lot the gods gave to me. To me, the dazed, the disappointed, the barren, the broken. And yet I'm strangely content and cling desperately to those sere memories when my mind momentarily threatens to reach beyond to the other.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to another episode of Learning Lovecraft. I am your host, Jason McKittrick, and joining me, as always, the traveler of the Eldritch Path, Mr. Ken James.
Greetings.
That was the opening paragraph of H.P. Lovecraft's The Outsider, the subject of this episode, and what a perfect macabre tale for Halloween.
Oh, fits right in.
Right?
Fits right in.
We're going to dive into it, obviously, but thumbs up or thumbs down on this one, Ken?
Tell you what, man, thumbs the F up. And
beautiful.
It was one of those ones where like literally midway, like not even, maybe not even midway, I was like, I know where we're going and I really like it. And then when I got 3/4 of the way, my eyes did that slip thing where you just go to the end. And I was like, ah, damn it. I was like, but I knew it, you know?
Okay, like, no problem. Yeah. Before we get into that, folks, if you have not read this before and you're just kind of listening along with us, I urge you, press pause, go read the story. It's like, what, 3 pages long?
Yeah, it's not a big one.
No, go read it because the ending, if you've never had the ending before, it's wonderful to experience for the first time because it's a good time.
Yep.
All right, so before we dig in, we have another Transmissions from the Void. All right, so for this edition, I'm going to turn it over to Ken for this edition's Transmissions from the Void.
Well, yeah, gang. I don't know if you know much about me or tune into our other podcast, but we made an announcement, and I've been working on all year a project that will be released a day after this comes out. So Friday,
just in time for
Halloween. It's a Halloween. I want to say kind of audio play EP. It has it's going to have 5 original songs and 1 cover that doesn't sound anything like its original version. But we have some audio skits, and it's a story. There's some anthology work in there, and it's going to be released on Bandcamp, and we'll have links. We'll share them, and it's going to be called Other Dangers Podcast Presents The Full Moon Collective. And hey, man, check it out. It's going to be $15. It's going to be released in a full theatrical form. And then there's going to be all the individual songs released under it. So $15, you get all that. It's a good time. I worked hard on it. Please swing by and check me out.
Yeah, folks, please do. We're proud of our little Kenny over here, and we're not seeing him succeed. What do you want to give the folks maybe a little taste? What kind of music can they expect? What kind of genre?
Yeah. What I did was I went with kind of my original form of storytelling, which is mostly hip hop, which I started out young. There's a little acoustic work mixed with some drums. It's kind of a mixed match. There's some alternative rock kind of stuff. There's it's for the most part, it's going to be kind of hip hop rap stuff, but in theatrical form. So it's not so, gritty. It's all telling stories. And there's also some audio work from our fearless leader over here, Jason McKittrick.
It's very minimal. I just say dumb things.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Hijinks even.
Yeah, it's hijinks. Yeah, I wrote a script to tell this story, and it all panned out great. Everyone did awesome with their readings. We have, besides me, Jay, there's Jason's wife, Kristina, my wife, Brittany, big contributor to the project, my good friend, Tim Burke, his girlfriend, Gabby, and then my buddy, Paul Young, he contributed to a track as well. So it's like I said, I worked on it really hard. It might not be everyone's favorite music or cup of tea, but trust me, it all makes sense.
Yeah, it's fun, folks. I got to listen to an early just about complete cut of it, and it's a fun little trick or treat kind of thing going on. And if you want to help out, one of your boys here, give it a listen and drop Ken some coin.
Yeah, thanks, guys. If you do, if you don't, you know what? Thank you anyway for listening to me now.
All right. So before we dig into the story at large, let's go over the particulars a little bit. Written between March and August of 1921, it was first published in Weird Tales in April of 1926. The Outsider is one of Lovecraft's most commonly reprinted works and is also one of the most popular stories ever to be published in Weird Tales. So, and you can kind of see why.
I could totally see why. I immediately was just like, there was none of my I wasn't missing. I was getting closer and closer to the page as I read, I was like, and what? Let's go.
Right. So before the opening paragraph that we got to hear at the top of the show, there's a little epigraph by John Keats from his 1819 poem, The Eve of St. Agnes. And we get, that night the Baron dreamt of many a woe, and all his warrior guests with shade and form of witch and demon and large coffin worm were long benightmared. So I think that's a little bit of foreshadowing, maybe, right?
Yeah, I was reading that. I was like, what's this guy? What's this guy about right now?
Yeah.
I was like, all right, man.
I'm sure you were like, they're probably talking about dreams in this one.
But yeah, no, because there's like this person's at the table that I was just like, I already knew from your cadence in the last, when you told me about it in the last episode.
Yeah.
I was like, no.
No, it's going to be good.
No.
No, we got lucky.
We will not be speaking of dreams here.
No. And I mean, there's a dream-like quality, but it's definitely not about a guy, taking a drug to, slip into his dreams or the dream worlds. But no, we definitely got lucky too with just how it lined up with the date. This one dropped is going to drop right before Halloween because it's perfect.
Yeah.
So that opening paragraph that we heard at the top of the show, that really sets the mood for the story, right? Mm-hmm. You're going into it's gothic, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. And this is a being whose existence is, lonesome and wretched, excuse me. Yeah. An awful childhood. I mean, we all know this guy, right? We all know this guy.
Yeah. Yes.
So, we can see where we're going, and I'll discuss a little further on this in the wrap up. But not far off from many other Lovecraftian explanations of things. So, right after we get this second passage,
I know not where I was born, save that the castle was infinitely old and infinitely horrible, full of dark passages and having high ceilings where the eye could find only cobwebs and shadows. The stones in the crumbling corridors seemed always hideously damp, and there was an accursed smell everywhere, as of the piled-up corpses of dead generations. It was never light, so that I used sometimes to light candles and gaze steadily at them for relief. Nor was there any sun outdoors, since the terrible trees grew high above the topmost accessible tower. There was one black tower which reached above the trees into the unknown outer sky, but that was partly ruined and could not be ascended save by a well-nigh impossible climb up the sheer wall, stone by stone.
So this guy lives in a world of horror.
Yeah. I immediately was like, all right, so I'm playing, Demon Souls right now. I was like, I'm in Demon Souls. I'm starting off in the first dungeon.
Or the I didn't play it, but I watched plenty of videos of it. Bloodborne, the Chalice dungeons.
Yeah, well, but the thing is with like Demon Souls and stuff like that, like a lot of times you just start in this like bleak, and you're like, I don't know anything. You're like,
right?
Who am I? Where am I? What's going on? And I was like, that's where we're at.
And I wouldn't be surprised if it was partially inspired by this story.
100%.
Right. So we get this, what hit me, and I remember, obviously I read this before, but rereading it again, it's the disorienting description, right? The way he describes it, you're disoriented. It's like, wait, what do you mean trees that go too high and there's no sun? What?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he's completely alone, and our lonely boy here just stares at candles just because he wants light.
Yeah.
Just to maintain sanity.
Yeah. And so at this point, I I was like, where are we going? Because I'm like, I know the name. I'm like, outsider. Okay, is this just someone who is going to eventually go somewhere where he doesn't belong, or is it going to be like wholly different where he doesn't belong? You know, and I was like, let's see how this thing unfolds.
Exactly, and it does. And
it does.
And a lot of it is he's just making guesses, right? Where he's just like he must have lived there for years, but he can't measure the time. People must have cared for him, but he can't recall any person except for himself, or anything alive except for bats and rats and spiders.
But he does talk about something that nursed him.
Yeah, but he can't remember any person.
Yeah, right. But he's just like, something nursed me, and the only visage that I have of it is this like flabby, gross kind of like. Yeah. I'm like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, I think he says, I think that whoever nursed me must have been shockingly aged, since my first conception of a living person was that of something mockingly like myself, yet distorted, shriveled, and decaying like the castle. Yeah.
So that's a whole different thing. Like, we could talk about that for a while, you know? Like, when we get to the end. But like now it's, you know, like,
in my mind, this is what happens in the Paris catacombs every night.
A lot of it happens like that.
Yes. This is what's going on there every night.
Yeah, and they're like multiple people.
Yeah.
Or things.
Yeah. This is in the areas where people don't go.
Yeah.
And then he makes point to that his surroundings were not strange to him because this is all he knew.
Yeah.
And then he spends many hours reading from these moldy books, which is kind of cool. He has like this library of like moldering tomes, and it's where he learned all that he knew, and he had no teacher.
Right.
And then he also goes on to say in these dense paragraphs that he never heard his own voice.
Yeah. And he was like he's like, I never really thought about communicating verbally before. Like, I never.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and then he mentions his aspect, like his physical being, like it was really kind of unthought of for him because there were no mirrors, and he just kind of regarded himself. I think he says by instinct that he was kind of like, oh, I must be like the figures that I've seen in the books, so that must be what I look like. Yeah, right. So very, very strange, but I love it.
Yeah, that must be what I look like.
Yep. And then I like this next section where he says that this is where kind of Lovecraft kind of had to write in some boundaries, because it's like, okay, well, what's going on? And he goes that he once tried to escape from this forest, but as I went farther from the castle, the shade grew denser and the air more filled with brooding fear. So they ran frantically back lest I lose my way in a labyrinth of nighted silence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What the hell?
Yeah. I'll tell you what the hell.
Yeah, I have my own opinions on that as well.
So then we get this third passage.
So through endless twilights I dreamed and waited, though I knew not what I waited for. Then in the shadowy solitude my longing for light grew so frantic that I could rest no more, and I lifted entreating hands to the single black ruined tower that reached above the forest into the unknown outer sky. And at last I resolved to scale that tower, fall though I might, since it were better to glimpse the sky and perish than to live without ever beholding day.
So he's just going to go for it.
Yeah, he's like, I'm done.
Yeah, this is Dark Knight Rises. He's going to try the wall. Everyone, there's going to be a weird chanting.
Yeah.
Yep. And then they have to fix his back by punching his spine piece back in.
Yeah, that's because that's how it works.
Right. Yeah, that's how they helped you out.
That's how they fixed me. Yeah. I went. They were like, "Look, you need to come in for surgery tomorrow." They went in, and I was like, you think pretty nurses are your ally?"
Oh, you get a shriveled, decaying corpse instead.
Yeah. By the time I saw the lights, it was
it's like, okay, Bane. Okay.
Yeah, Bane, chill out.
Right. So no matter what, he just wants to escape from the darkness, right? And even if it means his death. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. I mean, he's tasted a little bit of, he's got to get out of there. Do you want to just be staring at candles for, however long he's been down here? It's not been long.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to just be staring at candles.
Right.
I mean, now I do, but not like.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So he makes this long climb up the wall of black, slimy stone until he reaches what appears to be this. Like a ceiling, right? He kind of feels, and it's and then a trap door.
Right. And his whole description on the way up to it.
Yeah.
It's just like, you're like, ugh. And he's like, I try to like look out of like a window to see maybe if I could see the sky. No, I can't.
Yeah.
Or maybe even to be able to see how far I've like walked. And he's like, this was a wild trek, and it's just the same. Yeah. I just pictured walking up that like, tube style castle stairway. Yeah. Just like it just keeps going.
Yep. And then he even has to climb too, because there's like broken areas.
Right.
And I love the way he writes it too, because it's not long, but like the way he packs it with his weird description, you get it. You totally get it. It's gross, slimy rocks that are probably, wet. He's doing his best to hold on.
It's a way grosser version of the Ghostbusters climbing up the Statue of Liberty.
Okay, right.
When in the staircase and they look down, they look up, and there's like, and they're dun, 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 dun.
And Dana Barrett's apartment building.
Is that Dana Barrett's? That's part one. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm thinking, wow.
It's okay. When things that are that good come together, it just
it just scrambled my brain. Cthulhu came in and was like on my head.
Oof! Don't just you wait, sir.
I'm saying it's early shades. That's what's happening to me right now. I'm getting close. Things are happening.
Right. So we get this next passage.
Believing I was now at a prodigious height, far above the accursed branches of the wood, I dragged myself up from the floor and fumbled about for windows, that I might look for the first time upon the sky and the moon and stars of which I had read. But on every hand I was disappointed, since all that I found were vast shelves of marble, bearing odious oblong boxes of disturbing size. More and more I reflected and wondered what hoary secrets might abide in this high apartment, so many eons cut off from the castle below. Then unexpectedly my hands came upon a doorway where hung a portal of stone, rough with strange chiseling. Trying it, I found it locked. But with a supreme burst of strength, I overcame all obstacles and dragged it open inward. As I did so, there came to me the purest ecstasy I have ever known. For shining tranquilly through an ornate grating of iron and down a short stone passageway of steps that ascended from the newly found doorway was the radiant full moon, which I had never before seen, save in dreams and in vague visions I dare not call memories.
So I loved this because now you're getting a setting, right? You're not just picturing this desolate, disgusting, rotting away, cavernous underground castle. What it seems like at this point, which may or may not be something, but like you're getting this full moon passageway. Like you get the door. It's obviously ornate and it's on purpose, and he just goes nuts. And just like rips the door open somehow with a lock, and he gets past, and then you just walk out and you see that the visage of just like the full moon and this whatever he is at this point. I loved it. This is where I really just was like, my nose was on the paper, and I was just like,
like those memes of the woman who likes to put her face in bread. She just pushes face. No, this is a creepy dude getting bathed in full moonlight. It's on.
Yeah, it's on. It's welcome to the show.
Right.
And that's what that moment was.
Right. Yeah. This is Ed Gein dancing in the moonlight with his mother's skin suit on. Sorry.
Is it that?
Sure. I think so. He was an outsider.
By all means, he was.
Right. So our lonely boy finally gets to see the moon, which, you know what, at this point probably would have been incredible. You know?
Yeah, the ecstasy, just pure ecstasy.
Pure and unadulterated.
Yep.
So he figures that now that he's gotten up to this room, that he must be right at like the pinnacle of the castle, right? Like how much higher could I possibly go? I'm to the tops of these trees. I went through this door. Now I see the moon. So I must be, I just must be up there. So he rushes up. There's a few more steps to where that door was. But then there's a sudden veiling of the moon, right, by a cloud, and it causes him to stumble a little bit. Yeah. And then he's in the darkness again. Right.
Yes.
So it's dark, and he reaches this like grating area, which he finds and found unlocked. But he didn't want to open because he was afraid he was going to fall.
Yeah.
And then the moon comes back out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he gets the first big shock of this story, right? He finds out that he's at ground level.
Yeah.
He's not at any heights. He's on the ground.
Yeah.
And he's right. He even says that he's, these shocks were abysmally unexpected and grotesquely unbelievable. Because what a complete shakeup of your whole, honestly, your worldview at that point, right? Because this guy, he's like, oh, I'm climbing higher than everyone before. And you go out the six, like, I'm on the ground.
Yeah.
What?
This is weird. Why am I on the ground? Where did I just come from? Where is my home? Where have I been living?
Where is my beautiful wife?
Yeah. How did I get here?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he's expecting to see these treetops, this what does he call it? This lofty eminence. But no, it's he comes out and he sees it's solid ground, and he sees marble slabs and columns.
Yeah.
And then he sees this big ancient stone church. And then he says that whose ruined spire gleams spectrally in the moonlight. It's like, yes.
Yeah. You did it. You did it, HB. You
did it. Yep. Yep. So
you're doing it, Peter.
Exactly. Bangarang.
Yeah.
So right there we kind of get, we've been disoriented this whole time, but us as readers at the same time as the character, now we're like, okay, so he was underground.
And that's what I was saying. At this point, before this point,
I lost.
I started putting it together. I kind of knew what was going on before this. Yeah. And it started affirming it, as we were getting to places, the trapdoor, the grating, the ornate doors. I'm like, oh, I know where bro's been at.
Yeah.
Lonely Boy's been, he's been underground for a while.
Yeah, for sure. A long while. And then he, so even though this is kind of shaking him up, he's like, he says that he doesn't care. And he doesn't care if it's either insanity, dreaming, or magic, but he's determined to, quote, gaze on brilliance and gaiety at any cost.
Yeah.
So this is the part where he decides to take a little walk, basically.
He's like, I made it. He's like, I'm going forward no matter what.
Right. So he passes under this arch. He goes through this whole ruin of slabs and columns. Oh, I wonder what that is.
Yeah, right.
And then wanders out to this open country. Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's following the somewhat visible road, and comes across a meadow, and then there's only these occasional ruins that kind of tell him that there must have been some kind of ancient presence here or something. It's just, I don't know where I am, but this is, clearly this is an inhabited place, but it seems old or past. And he even swims across the Swift River.
Yeah. I was like, all right, bro. I was like, get it, man. He's like, nah, man, I just walked so hard. He's like, done. I'm done. I'm going, I'm swimming. They're calling this Lonely Boy River going forward.
Hey, if you sprinkled in a few, few low-level enemies, this would essentially be a From Software game.
Yes. Yeah. I'm in, dude.
I know. Yeah. I knew you would be.
Yeah.
You'll also be into this fifth passage.
Yeah.
Over 2 hours must have passed before I reached what seemed to be my goal. A venerable, ivied castle in a thickly wooded park. Maddeningly familiar, yet full of perplexing strangeness to me. I saw that the moat was filled in, and that some of the well-known towers were demolished, whilst new wings existed to confuse the beholder. But what I observed with chief interest and delight were the open windows, gorgeously ablaze with light and sending forth sound of the gayest revelry. Advancing to one of these, I looked in and saw an oddly dressed company indeed, making merry and speaking brightly to one another. I had never seemingly heard human speech before, and could guess only vaguely what was said. Some of the faces seemed to hold expressions that brought up incredibly remote recollections. Others were utterly alien.
So at this point, right, I'm like, yeah. And here's where I loved the writing up until this point, right?
Yeah.
So you have this whole world of this guy learning, or Lonely Boy learning, and talking about his past and his life and all this. But then he gets here and all this stuff is kind of familiar, right?
Right.
And he's describing all these things. Oh, something ancient was here at one point, but then he gets here and he goes, oh, wait, this is familiar, but I never heard this kind of talking, but there's new wings but it's also familiar. And once again, I'm like, yeah, I know what's going on. Yeah. Like I raised my hand. I raised my hand. I was like, call on me. Call on me. Call on me, teacher.
Yep. Totally. It's, the moats are filled in, he knows the building, but some of the towers have been demolished, exactly like you said. And I like the part about where he talks about the speech is different. It's like, I'd never heard human speech, but I don't know what they're saying, which kind of suggests maybe they're from a different time.
Yeah. And exactly. So it's like, he's like, this is vaguely kind of familiar, but like, wait, and then you're like, well, wait, why is it familiar? Is he remembering? Is it?
So inside, he sees light and sounds of merrymaking, and there's party goers, and they're in strange clothing, right? Yeah. And even more strange is the speech, like we said.
Yeah.
So he figures, you know what? I'm going to shoot my shot, and he steps through one of the low windows.
Full send.
Yep, full send. Send it.
Yeah, send it. Yeet.
Yeet.
Yep.
So he steps through one of these low windows, and everyone in the party starts to scream and rush from the room. Why?
But that's messed up too. This guy, he walks in through one of the lower windows. Think about that visual. Like you're like,
we'll get to it when we finally get to the end, and we'll have our fun when we can have our full fun.
Yeah.
But why is he so puzzled? So, and I know we got a lot of clips in this episode, but it shines through in the language. So I wanted to have it read. So we have the next passage here.
The cries were shocking, and as I stood in the brilliant apartment alone and dazed, listening to their vanishing echoes, I trembled at the thought of what might be lurking near me, unseen. At a casual inspection, the room seemed deserted. But when I moved toward one of the alcoves, I thought I detected a presence there, a hint of motion beyond the golden arched doorway, leading to another and somewhat similar room. As I approached the arch, I began to perceive the presence more clearly. And then, with the first and last sound I ever uttered, a ghastly ululation that revolted me almost as poignantly as its noxious claws, I beheld in full, frightful vividness the inconceivable, indescribable, and unmentionable monstrosity which had by its simple appearance changed a merry company to a herd of delirious fugitives.
Yeah.
You love it.
I love it. I was like, dude, at this point, because there is that last passage that I love. Well, it's not even the last, but the last thing that, it's in there.
Yeah.
But at this point, because he's talking about, he's like, he walks into the party, right?
Yeah.
He gets in the party, and people are like screaming, some are fainting, and people are like grabbing him to pull him away, and he's like so scared
flipping
of like
furniture.
Yeah, right. Trying to close the door, get a barricade. And then he gets to the point where he's like, oh my God, what is near me? What? Where?
Is there something on me? What?
What? Where is it? Is it over? It's behind me, isn't it? Like that kind of thing. Yeah. Oh man.
Like a very confused and excited dog. What is it?
Where is it? Where? What? And it's like this guy. He's just so like he forgets that he's so excited to people and this and that, all this stuff. What is it? Like, what's going on? And he wanders over and he sees the passage. Everyone's cleared out. Like everyone's gone, Yeah. And he's like, oh my God, something's still there. Mm-hmm. Something really creepy.
Yeah.
And he gets close, Yeah. He's like, oh God, what is that?
Yeah. Yeah. That can't possibly, I don't know what that is.
Yeah. He's like puking. He's like, oh.
And after he beholds this disgusting thing under this golden archway in a room that looks very similar to the room he's in, he kind of staggers forward and trips, and his finger touches the finger of the creature.
Yeah, he's like, oh, right? No.
Oh, no. And as this happens, and it's I really like the way that HP kind of put this together. He has this epic moment of realization and this flooding in of memories, right?
Yeah.
And I like this little quote that he says that all the fiendish ghouls that ride the night wind shrieked for me.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all like,
hey, can we pull from our other podcast? Can we get a Wendigo riff for that?
Yeah. Wendigo riff in there. Yeah, dude, sick. Oh man. And then the other one, when he's talking about, well, you probably get to it. Yeah.
So, and once again, we need the full reading for this, but we get this last passage that just cracks it wide open.
Oh, it's
for
so
us.
good. This is like, it was so sad before we get into this passage. This was so satisfying as me being a first time reader and going to where we got. It's like, I got a new favorite. You know what I mean? And
this was Bases Loaded. Stott got up there, played the theme song. You're like,
we were in the crowd, but like that was this is my favorite passage so far.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But in the cosmos there is balm as well as bitterness, and that balm is Nepenthe. In the supreme horror of that second, I forgot what had horrified me, and the burst of black memory vanished in a chaos of echoing images. In a dream I fled from that haunted and accursed pile, and ran swiftly and silently in the moonlight. When I returned to the churchyard place of marble and went down the steps, I found the stone trap. Door immovable, but I was not sorry, for I had hated the antique castle and the trees. Now I ride with the mocking and friendly ghouls on the night, wind and play by day, amongst the catacombs of Nephron Cay, in the sealed and unknown valley of Hadoth by the Nile. I know that light is not for me, save that of the moon over the rock tombs of Neb, nor any gaiety save the unnamed feasts of Nitocris beneath the Great Pyramid. Yet in my new wildness and freedom, I almost welcome the bitterness of alienage. For although Nepenthe has calmed me, I know always that I am an outsider, a stranger in this century and among those who are still men. This I have known ever since I stretched out my fingers to the abomination within that great gilded frame. Stretched out my fingers and touched a cold and unyielding surface of polished glass.
Yes.
Ooh, yes. My man's a creature of the night.
Yeah.
We got a monster birthing story here. Like we got it's just
a monster coming of age.
Yeah, just like and finding his own immediately when he's like, the trapdoor doesn't open. I don't care.
Yeah,
he's just like he runs to like he's running in the night. He's like talking about like
and that party he showed up at, that was essentially like a monster debutante ball. This is him stepping out into society for the first time, and people are just peeling their own faces off when they see him.
Yeah. Like he walks through a window. That's what I was saying. Think about that. This corpse,
his arm and his leg comes in and just
and he's just like, I want to be friends. And they're just like,
oh no. Like from Creepshow, like those comic book, like with the red background, the bright things. Oh no, that's what you're getting in there.
17 people faint. Others are grabbing them. Flipping furniture.
People are trampling each other to get out the door.
Someone says, "Grab me, musket." It's like,
somebody gets their face mushed as they're getting through the crowd.
There was lots of mushes, and that was probably like the wealthiest, most like eligible guy is just like mushing all the fucking he's like Brahm, he's like yeah.
So it's great. I mean, and now that we have like the the reveal there, I remember the first time I read this, I was like, oh, I got to read this again because I want to see, all right, where did he give us little like almost like the like the Sixth Sense? Hey, where are the little
oh, everything's red. Oh, it's red when ghosts are there.
Yeah. But this was a little bit more fun.
Oh yeah.
He's in this forest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are giant columns in like these catacombs that his corpse was existing in.
Yeah.
And why are there books down there? Like these old, is this an older castle that they build over? Is this like an ancient crypt or basement from an older one?
It has to be. What I'm thinking is because how far down it was.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was like, it was some like at some points, maybe even like a chapel where they would go.
Yeah.
And they would, read or spend time with however many corpses. Because he talks about the corpses in the beginning that he was just like, all this stuff down here I've just become accustomed to. Yeah. But my still big question though. What was the thing that nursed him? Like, what does that mean? That could just be, that could be any, maybe there were other, ghoulish creatures like him down there. That's what I'm saying.
Or maybe there was just some weird, like old groundskeeper that used to be there at some point that you should just come down there sometimes with his old lantern, just checking on stuff. And he's down there doing his thing. He sees him. The guy sees him. They just look at each other. He's like, and just turns around. He's like, I'm not dealing with that.
Right. But also one of my maybe it was like the last memory he had of like not nursing him, but like someone tending to his grave or like his body, maybe. some like old grave digger or some like old former mortician that would be back then, you know? And it's just some old weathered person that's just like so sunken and, you know, just like the whole attitude of dealing with the dead all the time have made him be like, whatever, you know, was kind of like me, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, but I loved that. And what you were saying, wanting to go back and find all those things, like, I like I said, I almost immediately knew where we were going with this.
I mean, you, like, any monster kid reading this is like sitting in a class of normies, like, oh, like, just like, I know where we're going. And the other kid's like, what's he talking about?
Sure. Tell me the weird, Mr. Kapersinek. You know, I don't know. I made a name up. I don't know.
I like it.
Yeah. Mr. Kapersinek. That needs to be a character going forward.
Sure. Yeah. That's the normie teacher.
Yeah, the normie teacher.
No, and then his ascent to the surface, him climbing up this, you know, these catacombs or whatever he's in. It's ruined, obviously. So maybe it used to be connected, but now it's not. So now his weird rotting body is Spider-Manning up these. Ew.
I loved it so much. I was like, yes, thank you for giving me. Thanks for this one, man. Thanks for this one.
Yeah, no, this is, and hey, man, we got a lot of good ones coming up, which is great. We've got a lot of good ones coming up, and you know, unlitten, bottomless caverns are going to be a thing in the next few stories. So
beautiful.
Yeah. So. Yeah, man. I mean, the dude was a walking corpse in subterranean catacombs of some kind of centuries-old castle.
And I love when he's like beholding what he's talking about, and he's like, I see, like, you know, the features just rotting away, and it's like the bones are showing, you know, like that kind of like, oh god, this thing's gross, you know?
Yeah, like
and he's like, oh fuck, it's me.
Yeah, he's nightmare incarnate, you know. It's like the grossest corpse thing you could possibly imagine.
Right.
I thought like some of those like. You ever see those? It's like I think it's in like Sicily. There's like those monks and priests that are like naturally preserved, and they like have them all on that one wall. I forget the name of the place, but they all have like those. Like, they're just their skin is like paperish, and they're all like And then like I imagine something like that, but that walking around.
Right. And the coolest thing though is like him accepting, you know, like once he realizes and like the creatures of the night like howled for him, and like he's like, now I frolic in the cemetery, you know, like he's just like, oh man, he's like, daytime's not for me, you know, he gets it, like he's like, no, this is my time, like,
what's great is that some of the things he says there are actually call outs to future stories.
You know what, I was looking for call outs to previous stories at this time, I was just like,
there really aren't, but what's kind of cool about this is that we have him kind of he sets a few things up here, which is like, oh, I love it. So the first kind of connection we can kind of make, that this is like a prototype of Lovecraft's ghoul, which we were going to get to later in Pickman's model, which you're going to love that one too.
Right.
They're somewhat different, but this is definitely him trying to like figure out, all right, where, you know, this is my undead creature, you know, is it just a walking corpse, or is it just, you know, he doesn't exactly describe it like he likes to do.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's clearly a human creature, you know, it's clearly a dead human, because, you know, we're listening to the story through its eyes.
Right. But it almost kind of seemed like this was like kind of his like, I figured it out coming out party, where he's like, where it's like, accepting that I'm that creature that walks in that everyone knows. Oh, and it's like he's like, this is my horror. Wait, this is my world. It's almost like, what's this? But you know, like, but in a way, like him accepting that, like, you know, like it's ours. You know, like, it's like that. Like, and it almost felt like him writing that. Like he was like, he's all exuded looking. You know, like, oh god.
Yes.
This is where I should have been. I should have been the knight. I am the Pumpkin King. You know, like that kind of thing. You know, like.
Sure.
I don't know. It felt like that to me, where I was like, oh, this is a turning point. Right. And it was a turning point for me, where I was like punching the air, you know, like I was like, yes.
Oh yeah, no, it's excellent. And I mean, before I go into those other references, I we should definitely mention the fact that there's a lot of autobiographical elements in this story about Lovecraft. You know, unhappy is he to whom the memories of childhood bring only fear and sadness. If you know anything about Lovecraft's childhood, clearly that's got a lot to do with it.
Right.
And a lot of Lovecraft scholars think that's, oh, you're reading too much into it, but I really don't think so. I mean, it's pretty much there on the page. And there's something that they clearly don't mention either, is that This creature, all his learning comes from these old books. This is very much like the library that Lovecraft would sneak into, that his grandfather had in the old home that they lived in before his passing. So Lovecraft used to sneak in there, with a candle and read the Arabian Nights and all these other books and, tales of like the 19th century and whatnot. And this is where he got a lot of his quote learning. So this is not a far thing to say that this is about Lovecraft by and large. And and you could disagree with me, but I think, and I don't mean you, I mean you in general. But I think this really does have a lot to do with Lovecraft himself, because the last paragraph, I know always that I am an outsider, a stranger in this century, and among those who are still men. That is Lovecraft talking to us. I mean,
like me being the noob here, I knew where, like I said, I knew where we were going, and I felt it the whole way through. I was like, this is totally Lovecraft talking about himself and finally accepting and coming into his own. That, for me, that's whatever scholars, I don't know what the Josh man says, but like whatever scholars want to say what they want. For me, I took this as, oh yeah, it's getting there. It's like, it's on. It's on now. And like, and his references and stuff, the way he did it, it was basically him crawling out of the abyss and wielding his darkness as a weapon, it's like, oh, this is how I'm going to stake my claim. This is it. Like I crawled out of the deepest and darkest abyss because I put myself there where I emotionally, because just my whole life learning about what a person should be, or learning about what humans are and how humans interact, and
or what's expected of me.
Exactly, what's expected of me. And by the time he finally got to ground level, he's this different kind of thing that when approached the new normies, they were just like, and he was just like, and at first he was like, why is everyone weird about me? But then when he finally touched himself, and he made the connection with who he was and his self, he was like, oh, they're all here for me. There are those like me, and like and the whole like rebeldry, like running. I'm now a creature of the night. I was like, this is Lovecraft becoming Lovecraft. I feel
as Palpatine would say, he's fulfilling his destiny.
Do it.
Do it. 100%. And I agree. And I don't know how you could deny that reading this story. And I think this is him accepting his, like, you know what? Like, there weren't a term for it back then, but he's like, I'm a monster kid. That's what I am. Yeah. And he realized it. And he's like, and this is the path I'm going to go. Because after this, the frilly Greek stuff has kind of fallen away after this.
Good.
What do you mean, Ken?
The frilly, like this was like I look, like I said,
no. Go ahead.
To My Love was the first one I loved. From Beyond, loved. Arthur Chapin, we all know I love that. The facts concerning that is Arthur Chapin. What's it?
Statement of Randolph Carter.
Statement of Randolph Carter, loved. From Beyond, The Taking of Juan Romero, right? Or Transition of Juan Romero. Loved all those. They aren't this.
No, but they are this. They are steps on the path to this.
Absolutely. But this is complete to me. To me, this feels the most complete, the most driven, and the most self-assured of just the descriptions were minimalized, but very effective. It seems like he had control. He found control. And he was able to put all of it into this, I guess, just like creative nucleus where it's like he can string from that now. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, this is who I am. Here's me. And now this is like whatever all that other stuff was before this was kind of like the cement mix, right? And he's like, here's the first brick. Boom. The first complete brick. All that stuff is just part of this brick. And now I can build my Gothic manor and house and whatever. I love it. I loved it.
I'm glad. And this is definitely one of his first, one of the first stepping stones. Like this is a complete story. And a lot of people do love this story. But we would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that the influence of Edgar Allan Poe is very heavy on this story. And that's okay. I mean, hey, how many authors, artists, musicians, whatever you want to say, there's definitely going to be these modes that people go in because this is how you get to there. You use their template and you eventually come to your own. folks have suggested that the party scene where he comes into the party, that's very reminiscent of Mask of the Red Death, when the Red Death shows up to the party, but from his perspective.
I was gonna interject there, but I didn't want to.
No, it's all good. Others have also suggested that it pulls a little bit from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, because there's a section where the creature causes a shock when he enters a cottage. And there's a quote from the creature where he says, "I had hardly placed my foot within the door before the children shrieked and one of the women fainted." And then also in the story, Frankenstein's monster later looks into a pool of water and sees his reflection for the first time.
Right.
So, dude, it was in the it was in the cultural zeitgeist.
Exactly.
It's Frankenstein.
And here's the deal: this is one of his lower creatures. I'm going to assume here. I can take this as but
think about it. It's like a seed. Like it's his first little creature, and it's coming
what I'm saying
out.
Is Frankenstein's monster was the pinnacle of the monster. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And those things taken from that, you can tell that he was like you said, the seed. He was like, oh, this is the beginning of something even darker and crazier and more wild. And your pinnacle monsters, are the beginning, just the beginning. And you could take those pinnacle monster moments and put it to his lesser creature, which is himself basically at this point. And it's oh, I can only imagine how wild it's going to get. His base level creature has now been bathed in full moonlight, and now it can grow into the thing it should be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I'm here for it, gang. Yeah. I think we got a new fave. We could stop talking about people banging monkeys. We'll never stop talking about gorillas. We know that. Once we have right now we're on Zoom, folks. But if it's a recording session, we're together. We're talking about Arthur German. It's just it's going to come up. It's going to come up. It's just the most fun. But there's a boxing match with a gorilla. Yeah. And that's not even the craziest thing in that story. It's not. It's a great story. But this, honestly, this has become my favorite. It's shorter, and it's not that I have a problem reading longer stuff. It was a nice, tight, very well read story or well written story that everything was in there you needed. Yep. And it led you to where it needed to go, and digging for the deeper meanings of especially for me, learning Lovecraft here. Yeah. Especially for me, I was like, here we are. We're here now. Everything else was just to get here. Yeah. And that's where I'm at. Yeah. No. Hey, I'm glad you loved it. I just want to mention also when I was talking before about a couple foreshadowings. I don't know if he was, where he was going with this or if he knew these were coming up, but in that last paragraph, he mentions Nitocris and her beneath the Great Pyramid. That is the Lovecraft and Harry Houdini story, Imprisoned with the Pharaohs, which is coming up soon. Can't wait. You're going to love that one too. Yeah. Oh, that story has everything. And Harry Houdini. You're right. I'm so glad that for a while now, I'm not going to have to hear about effervescent thrones of lacy gold on pillars among, not for a bit. Sweet. And then also we have a mention of Nephren Ka, who is mentioned in Lovecraft's last story, The Haunter of the Dark. And he was a pharaoh who built a temple with a windowless crypt for the shining trapezohedron, and did what was caused his name to be stricken from the monuments and records. He is an avatar of Nyarlathotep. Hell yeah. That story is that's all Wendigo riff. That story. I forgot. That one rocks shit. Yeah, The Haunter of the Dark is top 5 for me, maybe even top 3. Hell yeah. I can't wait till we get to that. That'll also be sad though. That's his last story. Oh no. All right. Yeah. So great little story for Halloween, huh? Oh, yeah. Perfect timing. It lined up. It's almost like it's certain times in our podcasts, sometimes things just line up, and it seems like the universe is sometimes drops gifts in our lap. And I'm really appreciative of that, because life doesn't always happen like that. No, it doesn't. But this one worked out, and I'm happy for that. So so since this is releasing right before Halloween, we got a little treat for you guys. We're gonna have a reading of Lovecraft's poem "Halloween in a Suburb" by my lovely wife Kristina McKittrick. Kristina.
Get a female voice on here every once in a while.
Yeah. My sis, Kristina. I love her. I love
Right.
Kristina.
We all do.
Yeah. We all do.
We all do. Right?
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, for this episode of Learning Lovecraft, I've been Jason McKittrick.
And I've been Ken James.
And have a happy Halloween.
Halloween in a Suburb by H.P. Lovecraft. The steeples are white in the wild moonlight, and the trees have a silver glare. Past the chimneys high, see the vampires fly, and the harpies of upper air, that flutter and laugh and stare. For the village dead to the moon outspread never shone in the sunset's gleam, but grew out of the deep that the dead years keep, where the rivers of madness stream down the gulfs to a pit of dream. A chill wind weaves through rows of sheaves in the meadow that shimmer pale, and comes to twine where the headstones shine, and the ghouls of the churchyard wail for harvests that fly and fail. But a breath of the strange gray gods of change that tore from the past its own can quicken this hour when a spectral power spreads sleep o'er the cosmic throne and loosens the vast unknown. So here again stretch the vale and plain that moons long forgotten saw, and the dead leap gay in the pallid ray sprung out of the tomb's black maw to shake o'er the world with awe. And all that the morn shall greet forlorn, the ugliness and the pest of rose where thick rise to stones and brick, shall someday be with the rest, and brood with the shades unblessed. Then while in the dark let the lemurs bark, and the leprous spires ascend, for new and old alike in the fold of horror and death are penned, for the hounds of time to rend.